Let's bring in counselor to the president now, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thank you for joining me today. This is big news because the nation potentially will see a State of the Union unless Speaker of the House Pelosi steps in and disinvites the president. What's your take at this point from the White House?
The president intends to go to the chamber on Tuesday night to address our great nation and give them an update on the state of our union. It would be, I think, remarkably petty of the speaker to disinvite the president of the United States to address the nation that they both serve at the highest level. And I just want to correct politely one thing John Roberts said. The president is not being vicious towards Speaker Pelosi. I was there in the Oval when he was writing this letter, when he was sending it out, as were others, and he was not being vicious at all. He said, I want people to be able to make their plans. I intend to do this on Tuesday. There's been some opaqueness from the speaker. There's been some uncertainty surrounding whether or not the State of the Union would take place on Tuesday as scheduled or in Congress in the Capitol as is tradition. And so the president wanted to put that to rest so people can plan. The First Lady is inviting guests to the State of the Union, as is the custom for every First Lady. And if Speaker Pelosi wants to disinvite those people as well, or not give us enough seats to be able to invite all of these guests who represent the best of America and the best of America's spirit, then she's going to have some explaining to do. Look, I think fundamentally she's someone who doesn't always have control of her temper about the president, but she often doesn't have control of her own chamber. I think she's afraid that many people are not going to show up, and that's embarrassing to her. She basically needs to say to her caucus, I want you to attend the State of the Union. I want you to be able to go back to your constituents at home and say, when I had a chance to listen to the president talk about what happened in the last year, what the vision is for the year ahead, you were seated there, you were polite in the chamber. You don't need to clap, you don't need to stand, you don't need to agree, you don't need to give an affirmative vote, but you should show up. This is a party, the Democratic Party, is so focused on 2020 that they're not focused, as my boss is, the President of the United States, on 2019.
All right. I do want to step in with something that does have the nation's focus, and that is a growing backlash against a government shutdown now. 71% of people in some polling showing that the border wall fight is not worth shutting down the government. That is a backdrop now to what is going on with the State of the Union. So I'm curious to know, what exactly does the president want to say the State of the Union is if the government is still shut down next week?
Well, the president has said again and again, including in his proposal that he released publicly on Saturday, Harris, that he is coming across to the Democrats in some of their wish lists. They have asked for more immigration judges, more personnel at the border. They want technology, including drones. They certainly want more detention beds and money for humanitarian needs at the border. And I think we can all agree, since every single Democrat in the House and Senate who voted for the historic drug legislation last year, they've already said drugs are a problem through that vote. They've already put the funding and the awareness and the teeth behind combating our drug crisis in this country. So when it comes to doing so at the southern border, the way they're doing in their own communities, why the big fat no? It makes no sense. So the president has come to the Democratic wish list and said, here are the things that I can agree with.
And he'll make that part of a State of the Union next week, that wish list? Okay, I want to move on because we got to get to this. America now watching to see how many more days beyond where we are into a second month now with a partial government shutdown. 800,000 people hurting. The president signing legislation that they'll get back pay. But many of those contractors in the constellation around those government workers will not get that pay. That is traditionally how it works, and they are going without. So this is a broadened swath of people who are damaged as the government is shut down. If the president is given something that both houses of Congress agree on, will he sign it?
It depends what it says. He obviously has said that he wants people to be paid. And that they will be paid.
We got that, but will he sign something that doesn't have border wall funding as we get late in the game now? But a
Harris,
date
but that's not realistic. I'm sorry,
but a date certain
that's
to
just
talk
not
about
realistic.
It. That's
it's not border wall funding. It's border security. Look, if you don't have a physical barrier that people cannot crawl under, climb over, drive through, or walk around, then we don't really have border security. That's just false. What happened to all these Democrats who have made joyful noises and affirmative votes in favor of secure fences fences and barriers and indeed walls that already exist in the past. They're being disingenuous. They voted for the funding to put it there. They voted for the funding to renovate it more recently. They're just being petty and partisan, and we want them to come over. We need a bipartisan solution to what should be a nonpartisan problem. We have great compassion for the workers. We have great compassion for the contractors. And as the president said, it could take 45 minutes, 15 minutes, or shorter if the Democrats would just come to the table, allow for the entire border security package, which includes so many things they've pretended they wanted over the years, and get moving and reopen the government. They need to do this. And the worst thing that could happen is to not have the State of the Union in Congress with everyone there on Tuesday, so that the country can see everybody together working towards these solutions.
All right. I wrote it down, joyful noises, and that's what we can sometimes call when people have voted for something in the past. I've asked Democrats, would you tear down the 600-plus miles that you have now? And they would say no. So we know from the majority leader in the House, Steny Hoyer, and others, barriers, walls in some areas do work. Kellyanne Conway, thank you very much. The president insisting on having a State of the Union address. Will continue to cover the breaking news. Thank you.